I can't be successful if I don't have an awesome team to help achieve the goals that we set. As a leader, removing stress and kind of leading through chaos is something that I think is a superpower for me.
My guest today joining me is Jessica Pellow. She's the Vice President of Marketing and E-Commerce at EDO Japan. Jessica, great to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So a long and very interesting career so far, a very impressive journey across many major brands. Jessica, can you give us just a quick summary of sort of where did the journey start and how has it gone to where you are today leading the marketing function for a brand that has, I think, 210 locations now and growing rapidly. So give us a bit of a summarized version of that journey.
Yeah, for sure. So my career hasn't really been a straight line, as you mentioned. At one point, it all began when I thought I wanted to be a production designer, and I got offered a job at the same time as I was offered a second position on the business side of things. And so I took the second position because production designers versus business, I was offered more money, quite frankly. And so that's how I ended up in the business stream. And I'm so thankful that I made that decision because I've been really fortunate to have worked for several major Canadian brands. I kind of started out at Indigo. I had a good stint there for about 8 years. Even back in the day, I worked for Danier obviously a decade at Canadian Tire working with not only Canadian Tire corporate, but also the Marks and Sport Check brands out west. So I tell everybody kind of I'm a retailer through and through. I think I've done a lot of different things. So my roles have been kind of based in and around marketing and creative services mostly. But that also includes kind of design management, event production, sponsorship and strategic partnerships, now e-commerce and digital marketing. So I think I've worked hard to become a well-rounded marketing individual.
Yeah. Is there something that sticks out from maybe previous to EDO that represents sort of a career highlight or milestone, if you will?
For sure. So partway through my career at Canadian Tire Corp, when I was in Toronto, I worked for the strategic partnership group, and essentially my role in that was to make sure that the sport properties that we had signed on as partners for Canadian Tire were executed to the best of their ability. So not only did that include kind of negotiations of the contracts, but also making sure that the assets that we were kind of blacklining in the deals were being utilized by the corporation to the best of their ability. I have no idea why I left that job. It was so much fun. Like, I got to go to all kinds of sporting events. I even ended up at the Brazil Olympics and the Brazil Paralympics. And so I will always say that that's number one career highlight for sure, because it was so much fun and I learned a ton, skills that I carry with me today as well.
Yeah. That was my question, why leave, right? And some people leave because of, maybe economic or lifestyle reasons. And some people leave to kind of explore pushing their developmental edge. I get the sense that you're the latter ambition.
I was the latter ambition, yeah. So at the time, I got a really great opportunity to move out to Calgary, actually, to work with the Sport Check banner and lead their digital marketing team. And so that was an important step for me because before that, I'd kind of been in and around marketing, but I'd never actually gone into the P&L. And so for me, it was a really important moment in my career to kind of step into something that I was super uncomfortable with. I moved into that job not being a digital marketing expert, but walking into the position with solid leadership skills that were required at the time so that I could really get into the weeds on the business as opposed to my prior roles at Canadian Tire, where I overarched a number of different business areas. And so that ultimately is why I decided to make the decision. The one thing I always tell people is, and it has been my philosophy since I started working, is that you have to take a certain number of risks in your career, because if you don't take those risks, you never know what you're going to find on the other side of it. And so that's why I kind of meander in and out of things. I mean, even working with EDO now was kind of accidental, but it's been the absolute best decision that I've made. So
yeah,
that's kind of been my philosophy throughout.
Yeah, that's a great reminder, right? If you're not growing, you're sort of dying, and often the boogeyman in the closet is much less scary than in reality than what we think. And so
exactly.
The fallout from taking those risks is much softer usually. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously anyone familiar with the QSR environment in Canada will know that EDO is a very successful, very creative, very quality driven brand. And it seems that growth and expansion is very much on the agenda right now. I know that exploring, 210, how do you go from there? So can you tell me, like, what from your perspective is so special about the brand, its leadership, and even the franchisee network that in your mind positions this brand so well for growth?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, one of the first things you said I find really interesting, because you said, everyone knows that, Japan is this kind of institution. I would say that our goal right now is actually to take what we've built and kind of incubated in markets like Alberta, where you can't, like, everyone knows what EDO is. There's no conversation required around what we offer or the quality that we bring to your day. But, our growth trajectory now is moving into markets outside of Alberta, like Ontario, for example, where we're much less well known. And so the approach has been pretty different over the last couple of years to try and bring that brand, that love that exists in the West, to East Coast of Canada as well. EDO is such an awesome brand. I have to say, like, the key to success to everything is to believe in what you do. And I have to start by saying that, not just me, but everyone that I work with, we believe in EDO. We're entering our 46 years in Canadian business next year, which is absolutely incredible. It's such a great story or origin story. We're really proud that we're a Canadian business. But not only that, we work really hard to make sure that the food that we offer you every day is high quality and a fantastic experience, right? And so job number one, everybody believes in the brand. And I think that differentiates us from other companies for sure. One of the first questions I asked when I was interviewing for this position was what the relationship between the corporation and the franchisees was like, because in an environment like this, it's extremely important that that relationship management takes place. Our CEO always says, we're not a restaurant business, we're a franchise business. And so ultimately, we're all aligned to the goal that we want our franchisees to be profitable and we want to see growth in EDO. And that in itself, I think, again, is another unique quality, because we're here for our franchisees. We've got a lot who have been with the business for a really long time, but we're also in the process of attracting kind of new franchisees for multi-unit purposes as well. So, you have to caretake the relationship that's been built to date, but you also need to build new relationships as you grow the brand into other markets. And so those are two things that I think are kind of fundamental to the growth story. Ultimately, the QSR landscape is so competitive. It's competitive everywhere you go. And, we're in a bit of a specialty category, obviously, Asian quick serve, and our food is just awesome. But the propensity for consumers, or the market potential for Asian QSR brands still exists. It's still growing. People are looking for things that are new and different outside of the burger and the pizza categories. No offense to the burger and pizza categories.
Totally.
But, we feel really proud to be able to offer something like that and introduce our great food to new markets. And so we see the potential of the business. We're not a group of individuals who are afraid of investing in making sure that growth is possible and making sure that we're successful in that goal. And we've got an incredibly supportive board of directors as well.
Well, thanks for clarifying that the market awareness. You're right. I think it's more accurate to say everyone in the sort of West Alberta-based QSR environment understands. There's such a cool opportunity that lies ahead over the next 5 to 7 years. And I want to double click on what you're talking about, the franchisee network at EDO, because I've spent a good chunk of my career in this industry, and often find myself having conversations like this with franchisees across different brands. And I wouldn't say that typically they're the most engaged group or most willing to storytell, but that's very, very different than what I experienced with EDO. We had an opportunity to speak with some franchisees and just get them to tell their story. And across the board, the energy and the passion and the belief was very tangible and very, so there's something there that's cooking and bubbling up that ultimately is creating that rock steady foundation for growth. So what an advantage, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have some wonderful franchisees in the network, and we have a good mix of those who are multi-unit operators operators. They also at times have other brands. And we find that the knowledge that they bring to the business that they operate for EDO is kind of unmatched. Like, it's really invaluable. And so we do tend to rely quite heavily on the perspective of the franchisees, because they live and breathe this every day, right? They're the ones that are in front of the customers. They know their communities. And so, we really put high value on the feedback that comes from that franchise network, for sure.
Let's shift a little bit to you. I'm curious, what do you personally find fulfilling about your job? Like, why do you care about the work? You can get money anywhere.
Yeah.
Why do you care?
This is a funny question, because I don't actually consider myself a marketer. Is that weird? I don't know.
No,
I
totally.
don't. I think that for me, the things that are important, I know I mentioned that you really have to believe in the brand, and I can see the proof in the pudding on that one. Like, people absolutely love us, and there's a reason for that. And we work hard to maintain that loyalty. I have to say, one of the best parts of my job is the people that I work with. I think I mentioned already that they're a passionate group of people. And while we've got some who've been around for a long time, we've also got a lot of new team members that bring kind of fresh capabilities to our thinking. And they're the ones that are helping us really look at our business differently. And it's inspiring. Like, I think we've built the teams up to be really strong. We've got great new talent coming in that are giving us new perspectives, not just from the QSR industry, but from other industries as well. But on top of that, the leadership team, we're a small group of individuals, our CEO, and then there are 5 VPs as well. I feel, take the time to create a deep level of understanding of what each of us are trying to achieve with our groups. And it's all because we want profitable franchisees and we want to be able to grow the business. And so I think that camaraderie, it's not always easy, right? We have conflicting priorities sometimes, and we've got to work through it. But I find that at EDO, nobody comes to the table with their ego in hand. We're there to problem solve. We all have the same goals. We all work towards achieving the same things. And so every day going into work feels like this great pile of collaboration, and it's just inspiring, and it's great. And I've learned a ton from the people that I work with. Yeah. Not only have I learned from them, but they've also given me the confidence in the contribution that I bring to the team, which I think is something that, I maybe lacked earlier in my career. And so it really is kind of a special thing, for sure.
Whenever I ask a version of that question, I always am reminded that the best leaders, in my opinion, always seem to resort back to answering that question through the lens of the team and the people, and how important it is to remember that, Patrick Lencioni told us through his fable that best performing teams have to be able to have healthy debate and disagreement, and then
exactly.
Disagreeing. And that is the mark of a great team. And I love that defines your love for the job. It's the team and those dynamics.
And it's fun. It's such a fun job. It's such a fun industry.
Life's short. Might as well have fun with what we're doing.
Exactly.
You said that I'm not really a marketer, and I want to use that as the segue to this next section where, the Growth League podcast is all about proving the point to marketing leaders that there's so many different ways to play this great game of marketing leadership. And so I'm curious about how do you describe the way that you play this game? What's your style, whether it be through the lens of team leadership, process, strategic direction? Take it however you want. But if this is a game, what's your style of play?
Oh, that's a very good question. So for me, I feel like you have to be able to move with the tides. I think it's really easy. And I've worked for big corporations and kind of smaller businesses, and they both have kind of different perspectives on this. When you work for a bigger corporation, when you're trying to steer the ship, it's a lot slower to create impact and to create change. Whereas with a smaller business, it's a little bit easier to kind of move with the tides, and especially in the QSR industry, having a pulse on what's going out there and what your competitors are doing and what customers are actually looking for it's really important, because instead of being reactive, we need to be a bit proactive on how we speak to customers. And so for me, there's no idea that's a bad idea. I'm a big fan of test and learn, just try something. Sometimes you just have to throw things at the wall, and maybe it's not a perfect solution. And when it's not a perfect solution, you can learn from the results and improve and tweak and make things better. But I try to be really open that way. I would say from the perspective of leadership, I think it all starts with accountability. And I think at EDO, we're on a bit of a journey here where I want my team to be able to feel like they have ownership over the end to end of whatever area of business that they're overseeing. But it all starts with accountability. And so, providing clear directions and making sure that we've got the values lined up against what we want to try to achieve, and allowing the team to play within that space or within that sandbox, I think makes the biggest difference in having a motivated team versus, a team that's kind of just trying to tick off the task list. And so that's generally how I try to approach things from a leadership perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. It's embracing the scientific method, right? Form a hypothesis and then execute in order to validate or deny that. And a lot of times when we set off on a journey and we realize we were trying to go north, but we realized we were going south the whole time, you could get frustrated about that, or you could say, well, I certainly know where north is now.
That's right. Yeah. See it for the opportunity that it is.
Yeah. Be willing to claim is your superpower as a marketing leader, something that you've gone back to time and time again. Is that you mentioned before that you like to nest yourself in the P&L and then work from there. What is it if something other than that?
I think at this stage in my career, I'll answer that question by focusing on my leadership style, because again, I can't be successful if I don't have an awesome team to help achieve the goals that we set out. So I'd say as a leader, removing stress and kind of leading through chaos is something that I think is a superpower for me. Admittedly, I asked my team about this as well, and I think their feedback was helpful. Sometimes it's really hard to talk about yourself in this way. So kudos to them for feeling comfortable giving me something to talk about. But I do try really hard to kind of make difficult or touchy situations or challenges kind of distill and bring them down to manageable, more digestible mandates. So I really believe that there's a way through any challenge that presents itself. Whatever that looks like is unpredictable, and that's okay. But I try to provide that air cover to my team so that they can focus on finding solutions without the pressure or stress of a situation, because honestly, there's no need for it. And in our business, again, I'll reiterate, we all want successful franchisees. We all want to see growth in the business. So I really try to approach leadership with that growth mindset to encourage the team to focus on what's really important, without getting bogged down or buried by the stress of any kind of situation.
Yeah, I love that. Make everything manageable. And it's amazing what people can do when they're in a sandbox that is manageable, right? And
exactly. Yeah.
This one might be easier for you because I think you are one of your traits is humility. But what would be the Achilles heel for you as a marketing leader or a leader, business leader?
Yeah, the Achilles heel. Okay, so I thought about this a lot because I think you could say a number of different things. But for me, I think seeing around the corners is one of the things that to me feels like something that is a constant struggle. It's always on my mind. Maybe struggle is the wrong word, but how do you look for that white space in this busy landscape? How do you identify what the long-term brand implications are going to be with the decisions that you're making today? It's important because the QSR business is volatile. And, like I said before, we need to be proactive and not reactive. And so, if you're always chasing your tail, you're only ever always following as well. And so I think for me, that comes what I would love to be able to do even better is being able to see around those corners and, really try to take, what's happening and what's shifting within the market to be more proactive in how we address our business challenges on a day-to-day.
That makes sense. And do you find yourself, acknowledging that it would maybe be defined as an Achilles heel? Do you find yourself seeking out strength-based partnerships within the organization, someone who might have this unique ability to see through the wall or around the corner and pair up and team up on things?
Yes, I think I could definitely do a better job of this, but I absolutely do my best to kind of leverage not just internally, but externally too. I mean, I've got a really great network of individuals who are incredibly successful and smart and, are really good at this type of thing. And so I do my best to kind of lean into the perspectives of other people to try and get how you do that on the regular. But, certainly having partners within the business who get it is helpful as well.
And I'm sure that they rely on you for things that are not smooth for them.
I like to think so.
So, what I'd like to understand and also a central part of this show is to kind of be real with the realities of the situation and be okay leaning into or sharing a current top either marketing or personal role challenge that sits with you today and it's not yet solved. Yeah. And I'm curious to understand, what it is and how are you interpreting it, and maybe what are some of the first baby steps that you've considered taking in the pursuit of resolving that thing?
Yeah. I want to lean on something that I mentioned before, which is, how do you take a well-known brand from one side of the country into another side of the country, and make it successful? Like this is, and again, this is something that we've been diligently, not that we've been trying to crack for a couple of years now. And I think our initial approach was, take the formula that works over here and apply it over here. Well, guess what? That doesn't work. So, assuming.
Why doesn't that work? Sorry to interrupt.
Well, because, in Ontario, I'm going to keep using Ontario because it is one of our biggest growth markets and growth opportunities at this point in time. EDO hasn't been based out of Ontario for 46 years. We don't have the footprint out here that we have in Alberta, that we've spent many years building. The geography in Ontario is really challenging because the province is just so big. So as you try to open stores, you're opening in individual communities as opposed to
Right.
within larger regions where you can have a bigger impact from a brand perspective. And so, I don't want to sound too confident in saying this, but we can open doors at a store in Alberta pretty easily and have people line up out the door and be excited that we're coming. Whereas we have a lot more convincing to do when we move into towns within Ontario. And so, like, growing that trust and credibility in these new markets is a really big challenge. So we're learning from it every day. And I don't want to make it sound like we haven't made strides, because we really have. And, we've got nearly 30 stores in Ontario now, and we've worked hard at that over the last couple of years. The thing that we can do is walk in with it knowing that, we're very confident that the first time you try our food, that you will be convinced to come back time and time again. It's just, we've got to get you there in the first place. And so that's the work that we're doing right now. A lot of fine tuning, a lot of trial and error. We've tried all kinds of different things. We've tried to package programs so that we can apply them on a greater scale as we open stores in Ontario. I think what we're learning is that every location, every community that we move into is unique. And we have to do hard work in understanding what those unique kind of moments are for customers in these markets so that we can be successful in these new towns. We have to be patient too.
Patience. And I'm wondering if what your level of comfort is in not being able to use the rich 40-year history as the key lever, but instead almost embrace this like day one scrappiness again, and sort of tap into that entrepreneurial. Is there a comfort level with that? Is there a motivation amongst the team to resort back to as if we were a day one brand?
Yeah, for sure. This is a huge priority for us. And I think it comes to life through local store marketing. We've got a really fantastic director of retail marketing who has really helped us to improve our local store marketing efforts, especially in the new markets or the emerging markets where we're trying to grow rapidly. What that entails is, again, you go back to the grassroots of how do we get you in our store that one time, just to try our food that one time, because we know after that, the hard part is done, right? And so a lot of the focus is put on that, building the awareness, number one, but number two, how do we create great introductory offers to bring people through the doors? Do we create some excitement around the location? Do we get right into the community groups? The answer to that question is different no matter what community we're moving into. But the great news is that we're putting the resources against it to really understand that. The second part of this, though, is, and this is a huge priority for us as a business, there's an opportunity for EDO to lean into our hospitality as a differentiator. Like, you go out there now and people kind of just churn and burn. They want to get you in, they want to get you out. You serve your food fast, and we also want to make sure that you get your meal fast. But we also want it to be a special experience for you. And so, that comes to life in how do you greet people? Do we have random acts of kindness? Is there a surprise and delight that enhances your experience? Are we building the tools that enable you to leverage our app, which is really awesome, and collect loyalty points that are extremely valuable, right? So when we talk about ground up or starting from the beginning, we're trying to hit all of these points that provide value or extra value to the consumers so that they can see that we're a
Hmm.
trustworthy brand, where their experience and, the product that they get is going to be exceeding their expectations every time.
Yeah. I would imagine with that, you've had to explore the relationship tie between operations and marketing. What thoughts do you have on sort of the criticality of taking two departments, which are typically not too much hanging out together? Has that been a central requirement in being able to pursue and fulfill this priority?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we couldn't do it if we weren't partners. Like, full stop. If we couldn't find common ground with operations, it just wouldn't work. And gone are the days where working in silos to deliver a great product works by luck. Sometimes it just isn't viable for long-term success. And so, recognizing that our operations teams are the ones that are right there with the franchisees. They're the business partners to every community that we're opening stores in or we're operating stores in. And so the very first step to forging that collaboration between the two teams is to make sure that we have a really strong understanding of what works and what doesn't, what causes them heartburn, how we can make their lives a bit easier to make sure that we're delivering the marketing assets that are going to be aligned with how we can deliver operationally, quite frankly. But yeah, that partnership, I mean, the operations marketing relationship, there's always a bit of healthy tension there.
That's what you need.
Yeah, and I think it's a requirement. I mean, honestly, I don't think we'll ever get away from that, and I don't think we should, because, if you can't connect the storytelling and the brand promise to the experience or the execution of that brand promise, then there's no kind of synergy end to end with your brand. So it's integral for sure.
Yeah. Quick last thing on that. I'm curious about franchisees, getting new franchisees in markets where you don't have a lot of awareness. Have you had to apply a greater sense of rigor, perhaps, in the selection of those franchisees as compared to previous, or is that not a thing? You have your process.
Actually, the process has changed quite a bit lately, mostly thanks to you guys. But I think before, before we were focused on these emerging markets, it's kind of, I don't want to call it, it's not easy. It's never easy to find a franchisee because, quite frankly, you're asking these people to buy into your business. You're asking them to believe in your business and to invest in you.
Which is a different ask in Alberta today than it would be in Ontario, where you're the only
That's
one.
right. Yeah, that's right. And so, when we look at markets like Ontario, it's been, the approach has had to be a bit different because not only are we looking at the bigger geography, but we also have the market opportunity is big, right? It's more than 200 stores in the Ontario or in the province of Ontario alone. And so, finding franchisees who can step in easily, go through the training, who have experience running businesses, or who are interested in working within regions is a bit of a different approach to how we're looking at our franchisee business. And, we're looking for business savvy individuals who can help us with that growth. But at the same time, you have to give them the reasons to believe that they should be investing in your company long term because, we just don't have the footprint out here that we do in Alberta. And so thankfully, we've got really great use case and really great case study in the West Coast. But yeah, it is different. And now, we're moving into Quebec, finding franchisees and recruitment or going through the recruitment in Quebec is entirely different than it is in the West and Ontario and other places as well. And so being able to be agile in that is super important for the business for sure. Yeah.
I love it. I'm excited to see how it all goes. I'll leave us with this one last question for you, Jessica. I wish we could do this for another hour. I'm curious about how you have been able to, or what your approach has been to intentionally sort of quiet the inevitable voices and noises in your head that seem to come up and say, Jessica, you're no good at your job, you're failing, you're a terrible leader. Some doesn't happen all the time, but certainly it happens from time to time. Like, what do you lean on in those moments of...
So this is an interesting question for me specifically because there was, and I probably didn't realize it at the time, but there are big sections of my career where I actually didn't feel very confident. And that lack of confidence actually prohibited me from achieving my goals. And so there was my TSN turning point was when I went back to school, actually in 2021, I went back to school to get my executive MBA. In the MBA programs, you work as a part of a team. And on the first day, you're introduced to your team. You're all a bunch of strangers. You all come from different industries, and you've got to find a way to work together. And over the 18 months to 2 years that I was working with my particular team in Calgary, they helped me see that the contribution that I brought to the table was valuable. They helped me see the areas where I could learn from them and take a back seat and learn from their own experience that I didn't have. And so walking out of that degree, my level of confidence skyrocketed. And I think it comes as well with many years working and many years going through the hard knocks of building a career, right? But at this point in time, for me, the voice still exists. However, I would say I've proven to myself that that I can do a lot. I've proven to myself that if I put the passion and the energy into the goals that are laid out before me, that I can absolutely achieve them. The other side of this coin is, again, I'm going to go back to the people that I work with, because I've never been at a place where I felt like I had influence. I have influence over the decisions of the business. I have great leadership from EDO's CEO. My colleagues and peers are very experienced in QSR and other industries, but they trust me and they believe in me. And that does a whole heck of a lot to my confidence as well. And I'll leave you with the final thought that, the one thing I think we all have to go over or get over is it's all right to make mistakes. Yeah. It's, if you're a person that strives for perfection all the time, it's going to be tough for you, because you've got to be able to accept that everything doesn't always go the way you want it to, but also kind of opening the door to understand that when it doesn't go your way, there's still something to be taken out of that situation that can help you down the road, and it's kind of an important life lesson that I've had to learn. But time as well. It takes time.
It does. I'm going to run that back as a loop track for my 7-year-old daughter, who needs everything to be perfect. If there's a mistake on the picture, she'll erase the whole thing and throw it out.
Yes.
But for other marketing, mid-level marketers that are keen to to position themselves for leadership and growth, I think those are all great reminders. So thank you so much. Very, very inspiring the way you're playing this game. And I'm very excited to see how the brand grows under your leadership and how you grow personally.
Awesome.
As part of it. So thank you so much for sharing, Jessica. Everyone, my guest, Jessica Pellow.
Thank you.